Um, going to start doing these more, maybe calling from the desk of or something cool like that. But we're going to start going live a little bit more, just speaking to some things. Usually that has to do with family engagement, has to do with early literacy. Sometimes it just have to do with community engagement or father engagement. But uh, welcome you this morning to our morning live sessions that we will name at some point and do it all the popping YouTube people do. But this is Mr. B of Fathers Read 365.
Good morning, everyone, wherever you are in the world.
And just to get started this morning, want to just jump on a good morning or evening, wherever and however you see this. But just to get on and talk about some topics, man, and not just some topics in general, but topics around community building and father engagement. Today, one of those topics are the frustration we see in our community usually when there is some type of tragedy, when there's some type of loss, when there's some type of, and I'm talking about inner city communities right now, Philadelphia in particular, where we work and do a lot of our and live. Um, but when something happens, and recently a rapper, LGBTQ Quad, rest in peace, was recently murdered. And there's a lot of hurt and emotions that come associated when someone, a young person, a person in general dies. And with the recent advent of social media, you see it played out publicly more. And we just wanted to come on and talk about how that same pain um, that's been captured before is what empowered us to do some of the things that we have, and not just us, other people, other advocates, other organization leaders, founders, how they turn that pain into like passion or power. So, good morning again, Mr. A. I just wanted to rumble that off this morning. I don't know if you want to jump in with your morning monologue to a degree, and then we could jump into like some of the, the
As youth advocates, as school based behavioral health counselors, as therapeutic staff support, our story is when we got started, we initially wanted to, and I mean, we still do to an extent, we want to help keep fathers out of the prison system. So we were going to go in, work with those dads who are coming home to get them, you know, reacclimated with their community and especially in the lives of their children. And when you hear the passing of, like Brent said, of I don't want to hack his name up. I believe it's Quadir Johnson. He goes by LGP Qua, voice of the youth, and it was great. I know for myself, Mr. B, to see who these, of resemblance of the kids that we have worked with, and to take the issues and really put a voice to them. Um, we do it as adults, but it's even better to see it done when it is a child and it's sad. And I'm sorry, that was probably 10 years ago when he hit the scene, just about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit uh, sooner. But I remember Mr. B, it was right around when we got started that I started hearing about this young man and he was putting out this music. So, to get into what we're going to talk about, I'll let you take the reins here, Mr. B. I know we were talking yesterday for
right.
5 hours.
I know. When I looked at the time, I was like, "Woo!"
totally about this topic, but that's what we do. We're always talking, we're always looking at an issue, seeing how we can impact the issue.
Think that's a great place to start right there is there's a lot of issues in our community, right? When you talk about inner city communities, you talk about black, brown communities, there's a lot of issues and it could become overwhelming at times because you figure out, well, how do we help everything, right? And you almost feel like it's on you as a decent human being from some of these communities or when you service some of these communities that there's so much to take on. How can you do it? And sometimes we try to be Superman. We know it. When we started, we had 5 programs, right? 5 programs were built around how to teach with their children when they come home. And we realized you can't help everyone and you have to focus. And today we're talking about how do you turn frustration and emotional pain into power and progressional movements. And it's finding out how can you help? What do you want to help? And how can you be of help in that area, right? It's not always about being the most popular group or having the most known activity organization or leaders. It's about how can I help, right? So Keith and I, we figured out we could help better working together. And I say this to back up a little bit because in these times, what we see a lot of times is emotional, and emotions are connected to any type of loss, so that's human, right? However, when we get past those emotions, as we like to say, and then what, right? And then what? And then what? And then what are we going to do with those the reasons why we felt those emotions, right? And when we were feeling emotions, those thoughts we thought of, oh, they need these type of programs, they need this, they need that, they need this. And a lot of time with the Facebook or the IG or the TikTok or whatever that is, right? So many now. You can express that, right? You can express that and kind of unload that, and then usually 2, 3, 4 days later, you're past it until the next event happens. And this work isn't for everyone. However, if you feel as though you can be of service, you can be of change in a community, and you feel this calling, take it on. Because like Keith and I, we took it on we said we are going to be fathers read. We didn't know how we were going to be fathers read. We was champions of literacy, right? We walked into these daycares just to read to children. And from that, a 9-year organization is built. We had no idea we would be doing what we're doing now. And now, Keith, do you want to talk? You want to speak to that? How we actually took that beginning part of just planning, organizing, and turning it into an organization. Led from real quick though, led from that being upset, right? Seeing what's going on, what's happening in our community.
Set on something that we were passionate about, and we took it on. We took on our own call to actions. We got people activated around those things. Myself, living in a single parent household, being able to navigate through life, get to where I was to that point as an adult, I felt as though that I made it through. And it was like, what did I need as that kid who may not have had a consistent father figure present? How did I lean on other relationships in order to help me develop in life? So that's why I created Fathers League. And I also saw at that time there was a lot of police, so-called police. What do I want to say?
Harassment, no, but the killings and everything like
Right.
that.
Michael Brown. You know, those
Okay.
were what was his name in Florida with the hood? Trayvon
Trayvon
Martin.
Martin.
That's what really got me going, because it was like I grew up with those kids. I was with those kids, and I also worked with those kids professionally. And you, Mr. B, what made you get activated with Father's Day 365?
Right, because if y'all didn't catch it, Mr. A had Father's Lead at the time, which was his organization. I had Father's Day 365, which was an organization that I had started for fathers. Um, and it's funny because prior to that, just to give you a little more history, we had tried to create a football tutoring program together that didn't actually it didn't take off, and we both went our separate ways and started Father. And my thing was around celebrating fathers. Um, but to give you a little more background about my push into the community, it didn't start with Trayvon Martin. I think something that we have to address is Keith and I have always worked in the community since we started working, right? Since we came out of college, we've worked in our community. We've worked with trying to help kids and families um, and desperate situations try to find that light, right? Trying to find that path to figuring out life, to figuring out how to do better. It usually came in juvenile justice jobs or work through the juvenile courts in Philadelphia. So from the time we started engaging with the community as adults, we were in the community trying to help. That's what led us to work, right? And I remember around Trayvon Martin, because that's when social media was kind of really taking off as well. I was on there firing off, right? This need to happen, that need to happen, this. And what I realized was although I was already in the community doing work, I was still just talking on the internet about what else other people needed to do and how other people needed to impact the situation. And I checked myself at some point in that and was like, well, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Outside of this job that pays you, right? What are you doing? You could say, oh, I work with kids because I'm getting paid to work with these kids. What else are you really doing? And then I started at the time just going out into camps, talking, every summer speaking all these speaking engagement and just kept building that up because the thought was, yeah, what am I doing? I could help. I could play a part. And I wasn't getting any money. Wasn't looking for any money. I was looking for how I could help my community. And so the Trayvon thing really got me started. And honestly, real quick to say, how Trayvon life was, how he was unalive, um, had really nothing to do with what I started doing, right? It I started working with kids who were in trouble and what use what I usually do. Trayvon wasn't that, right? But for whatever reason, just because I was posting so much about that and what needs to happen, it inspired me to say, yo, dog, you just talking on the internet.
And so when I said what things that inspired me, it wasn't solely a Trayvon Martin. It was more around the issues with well, I mean, it was him. I would say more Michael Brown, the
Mhm.
police, and those relationships there. Also, the relationship with the children in the community, but definitely those relationships. So it was me saying, because I could have sat back and I could have did the same thing, being an internet gangster and just shooting off at the mouth and saying what needs to be done here or there. But no, I internalized that and then I took action the best way I knew how. And like you said, you just went out and started speaking. And I think that is one of the best things you can do is to start to share, with because I mean, I'm sure somebody is listening, and it doesn't have to just be from who you're speaking to. It could be somebody from the outside. You could post.
So funny you say that because after the Michael Brown incident, I was upset and I forget things was going on. I was leaving the house. I said I needed to do something. And my wife was like, don't do nothing stupid, whatever. And some reason I went back up my old neighborhood and I drove past because I think people was rioting that night or something like that. I drove past a church, a non-denominational church. I haven't been to church in God knows when. I don't claim to have a religion. I respect all who do. However, for some reason I stopped and I walked in this church and it was a bunch of people and they were talking about the issue, right? And I grabbed the mic and I spoke that night. And I remember when I was finished, it was like totally quiet and people started coming up to me and they invited me to come back to the church. And because I represented the the children, right? I represented what we see every day, and the other side of what that looks like. Instead of these parents need to do that, and these kids the devil, and I hate this generation. I represented the heart and the souls of these young people that I saw, right? That may not show up on a rap sheet, that may not show up on when they do things negatively. I'll just say that. And what I saw was, oh, you have power. You can move a crowd with your words. You can connect all of this together. You could be of service. And I left there very excited about, oh, you can play a bigger part in this than just part you've been playing working with kids and talking to the families that you've talked to. And I think people need to believe that, right? They need to believe that they can be of difference. I think when we ask for they need to do a this needs to happen and that need to happen. How can I make that? And I don't think sometimes we believe that we have the power that we actually own.
I think even before we start to get to our solutions and even around how we got this thing going, we got to start looking at the root causes of things because, like we said in our conversation, a lot of times, we can take action and we could jump in, but when you're with people that haven't got in touch with something, like it's something in the way that could get them to open their minds up to whatever that may be. Because what do we deal with? Like here in this situation, which made us come to speak on this, was senseless gun violence. And that's something we're definitely diving deeper into when we're talking about our literacy and we're talking about the outcomes of what can happen when you're not set up properly or taught properly how to read and write in a lot of these communities. So, Mr. B, I did.
Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like I said, before we get into more of the solutions, is looking at this as a public health crisis. And like I said, because what we're getting at, we're talking about trauma in these communities. We're talking about what poverty, high poverty. What are the issues, to kind of get back into our professional work experience, like us as advocates, us as youth advocates, when we were driving around, picking up, adjudicated youth who had gone through whatever in the court systems. What were the type of children, kids, almost, kids, teenagers that you were dealing with? And what were things that you did in your time in your professional work experience before starting your own? What were the things you learned in those moments?
And this funny thing is, I did a lot of those jobs before I was a parent myself. Did a lot of those jobs at 20, 30 years old. So I was still developing as a young person myself, working with kids, sometimes 8, 7, 6 years, 10 years younger than me. A lot of it was, so when coming into the work, you have your perceptions, right? And some of the things from your life experience. The biggest thing I realized was like, most of these kids aren't bad in the sense of they didn't come here wanting to destroy things. They didn't come here trying to hurt people. They may have ended up destroying and hurting people. Don't get me wrong, but most of them, especially the ones I saw when they were babies, like, you know, they didn't come here angry. They didn't come here mad. They started dealing with things. And yes, two people could deal with the same exact thing and respond differently, right? The biggest thing that I know that a lot of these kids weren't taught things, right? We assume because someone has a mother and a father or lives in a house with someone that they know certain things. I'll never forget when we was in Camden High and we were talking to the kids and I said something about manners. This was like the last week of school or something. And I said something about manners. And it got really quiet. And I was like, y'all do know what manners are, right? And it stayed quiet. Then a kid in the back, I won't say his name, I remember he raised his hand. And I'm thinking, okay, I knew his mom, I knew his dad, they were older, right, when they had him. And he had manners. So I'm like, all right, bet. I got hope here. What's up, so and so? What is manners? And I'll never forget, he said, listen, I don't know what it means, I don't know what they are, but I know I got them. That the English teacher, he used to build their vocabulary word of the day. Every day they got a word. And I think we got to bust word of the day back out. And I'm saying all that to say, when you tell someone, mind your manners or they don't have manners, a lot of kids aren't taught. You just assume people are teaching what manners are, or a lot of kids didn't know what manners. That whole classroom, it was a whole high school, about 80 kids there. They didn't know what manners meant. I have a story about tucking your shirt in. He didn't know what tuck meant, right? There's a lot of things that kids respect, right? There's a certain level of respect that certain people just aren't taught, or they're taught disrespect, right? And because they have a parent or they come from a house or whatever it is, we believe that they should know these things. And that was my biggest thing. I learned that, oh, I know what I don't know, right? Is that I don't know what's going on in these houses. All I know is what it comes to me and I meet people where they are. And that's what I learned the most is, and I did learn that in college, Dr. Gross, meet them where they are. And that's the biggest thing I had to learn is meet them with each individually where they were. And then how can we help rise them from there?
Because I think also, Mr. B, we discussed yesterday in that 20-hour conversation. We talked about us also growing up as youth, as young black men, along with our own partners, our own boys that we grew up with on the block. And unfortunately, both of our stories is that a good amount of them serve some time, serve some time behind bars. And I know I shared yesterday, so I'm gonna share again. It was around association because we always will talk about the kids who seemingly have, when you look at the paper, they got into trouble. They didn't do real good things. But what about them kids on the side? Like me and Mr. B, who could still hang with them kids and do everything they could do, but we made different choices in our lives. Maybe because somebody came in and they saw something for us and shared something, which was my case. And it happened to be my parents. Told me that I needed to take a different route, but they didn't tell me what I needed to do. They allowed me to figure that out. And in that moment it was around me hanging with my friends, making better decisions. I was better than this, that I made that choice that I had to again do something different. And it wasn't that I completely cut my friends off, but I just had to love them from a distance. And I'm still close with them to this day. The ones that I have been able to reconnect with. But it was the somebody seeing something in me. Mr.
I think that's so important that parenting, right? You said your parents at the time. I believe it was your mom and your step pop at the time. In my house at the time, it was my mom and my dad, right? And again, we're talking about two mom and two different parents, right? Involved, encouraging, because you often see people bring, "Where's the parents? Where's the parents? Where's the parents?" And I get that because parents are the ones who help us make these decisions, who help us able to stand in, like I was saying to you yesterday, every day in middle school, it was either go sell drugs, go hooky at the gallery mall, or go like breaking houses or breaking cars. Get a Johnny back in the day. They used to say, get a Johnny. Uh, and that was the three routes. And I told the one that I did used to think about was going to the mall downtown. I didn't want to break in nobody's house and sell no drugs, but I did think about going to see some girls at the mall. However, it was being able to stand there with my parents because I hated school at the time. Like I did want to out, and that was the out. And it was like if that's the out, I don't want in, right? If that's the out, I don't want in that. But I had strong parents who were able to help me make those decisions, right? At 12, 13 years old, that wasn't just little Brent or little Aki making those decisions, right? That was also the balance of our parents being able to help us make those decisions. And every kid doesn't have that, right? Every kid doesn't have that. Just period, right? We kids know what they know, people know what they know, and they learn it from people in their environments. And I'm not making any excuses, but it's just real. So if your parents don't know any better, how can you expect the child to know better unless they're picking it up from little outside sources and have in a self determination type of thing that some people have? That's like, I'm gonna be that. What's that? Rose out of concrete, right? However, a lot of people get stuck by the concrete. So really, go ahead.
I was gonna say while we're right there and talking about kids and just things they could do different, activities. You were in the sports. You might have been in the other arts and crafts or designing clothes. I don't know what Mr. B did all with your hobbies and extracurricular activities, but we were involved in sports, so we had something to do. Um, and I believe that's a good thing. And I'm sure even with our youth advocate job, what did we do? We went around, we picked our kids up, and we took them to activities. So we get involved into things. So what is your take on that? Kids activities for parents that may not know and are in the communities that we're in.
Gotta get kids involved in something, right? Gotta help them try to find their passions. Because a lot of time a kid will find their passion and that is steer them throughout life, at least positive, right? Um, gotta understand that those things are important. Taking your kids to a karate class, maybe helping them become an artist or an actor, not because maybe they're going to grow up to be this Emmy winning is the greatest artist ever, but being involved in activities teaches structure, teaches discipline, teaches whatever that particular activity is known for teaching. Like my son does karate, is known for discipline, it's known for building confidence. And I've seen that. I would suggest karate for anyone, honestly, to start off with a kid because I would just say that. So as far as activities go, you want kids involved in activities. You usually can find some free stuff, right? And you can create activities, right? You can create fishing. You can create, hey, we go on nature walks. You can create certain things that may seem corny, but become things that become these bonding activities. And I think that's something we're going to be talking to more in the future. Actually, talk. I have a book, 52 Simple and Fun Activities for Dads and Kids. It's 52 simple activities in there that you can find on Amazon that's connected to could do with your child, right? And activities are so important and not just based off of, oh, they could go pro or they could become whatever the next this or that, just so they can and start to expand their mind.
And on that, Mr. B, so, a story that I have is when I was teaching, I was a substitute teacher in Chester, Pennsylvania, long term sub. I was in seventh grade reading and language arts. And, when I first came into the school, that day, that principal in the morning, because we always had to go to our, see what our assignment was. And she came in that office. She had like three kids hanging off of her, one on her ankle, two on her shoulders. And she's like, "Hey, Mr. Staples, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Here, I'll take you to your classroom." So what I at office was only a precursor to what I saw in that classroom. Because when I got to that classroom and went in that door, they this class did not have a teacher for a month and a half. So they were in there, just
Big thing.
boys in the back playing tonk, gambling. You had girls doing double dutch in the middle of the room. Then you had your little quiet crowd over here. Oh man, but I wasn't sure, and this was a big breakthrough for me because I had anxiety about speaking in front of people in groups, getting up and speaking in front of groups, and I was like, I Keith, professionally, if you aspire to do the things that you have envisioned for yourself, you got to get over this. So I sat at the end of the day after going through that day of more disciplining than anything, and it was like, am I going to do it? And I made the choice to do it. And when I took it on, I'm so glad that I did because I was able to create something. And I created it because of the connections that I had with the kids that I started to notice with the kids. And it wasn't anything I forced. It was just, hey, the day was over. I was sitting in my room and then I just would have a flood of kids just coming in. Even the ones that were giving me trouble during the day, they would come, "Hey, Mr. Staples, how you doing?" Blah 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 blah. So I started to build that relationship there. And then, when I come in, you get your newspaper, and I'm reading the paper, and I'm looking in the community, and I'm seeing deaths every day. And Chester is only but so big. I'm sure you could compare it to like a Camden, uh, type of size. So everybody knows everybody. And it's just like, darn, I have to do something. I have to take action. And Chester was, hey, they were known for basketball. And I know the kids like to play basketball. So I was like, man, if I can connect with them this way, I'm sure I can. What I wanted to do, I wanted to create a safe space for them, so that during that time, from the time school got out, which was about 3 o'clock to 5:30, I didn't I didn't ask for any money. All I said was, give me access to the gym. And then I came up with a criteria for the kids. So it wasn't just, hey, come on down to the gym, come hang out with me. It's the cool thing. No, I gave a sheet to them and to the other teachers who the kids weren't in my classroom who wanted to play. And it was, you had to have good behavior. You had to listen to the teachers, couldn't get any complaints from teachers, or you wouldn't be able to participate. And they took that on, and it started with a group of maybe about 4 or 5 kids. And it grew to these big runs to where other kids in the community wanted to come in and play. And it was just wow, but it was creating a safe space for them.
And that's the thing about what we're trying to speak to today, because again, a lot of emotions and you see involved in the community. Uh, Currently now in Philadelphia, a recent passing of a young man who was very popular, very positive. I actually liked a lot of what I heard from him. Uh, Quadir, is it Johnson, I believe?
Uh, Quadir Johnson, yes.
Yeah, LGQ. Let me not. I'm gonna mess that up, but it's Qua. I know his name is Qua.
Quick.
Yeah.
Yes. And he's from the night of Philly.
Yep. Nice town area. And with that, you see right now is like a lot of people just saying they hate Philly. They hate this generation. They hate a lot of things. It's a very emotional time for some people. And again, social media for that and a place we can capture that. And you see it a lot. And what we wanted to talk about is how we live these similar crises through some different people in the social media world, and found ourselves emotionally um, letting out, right, spewing out a lot of things emotionally, but how we allowed that to turn into positive actions in our community and took it from it wasn't because I'll tell you now, we've been running Father's Read for 9 years, going on 10 years, and we've been able to fundraise over $1 million to keep this thing rolling over time. We're not millionaires, but we've been able to sell our program, right? Sell what we're able to do, how we're able to help our community, and have been able to been funded for that to do the work that we've been done. But it didn't start with that idea, right? It literally started with how can we help, right? When he was doing that basketball program, it wasn't about, hey, I could start a program in 20, 30 years. It's like, how can I reach these young men in front of me now through what I can do, right? When I started going out and doing some of the things that I would do with young men, just I would take some kids out on the weekend. I would go run these free programs for children uh, for nothing. Talk parents, hey, can you come talk to my kid? Hey, let's go out and just talk to them for nothing. It wasn't about now the run programs is about funding, right? However, to help, to start to help, to strike the match, right? To start to it doesn't cost a dime to do that, right? It costs a understanding what needs to happen and how you can help it happen, right? And who it can impact. You don't have to be from it, right? You don't have to go help the kid. A lot of times when we see this work, we think, oh, we got to go help the kid just shooting everybody. We got to go help the kid just robbing everybody. Living in poverty alone causes a degree of trauma, right? That in gives you less opportunities than a lot of people have. So the kid that's shooting up everything, he may be living next door to a kid who wouldn't throw a grape in a fruit fight, right? But they still have the same less resources. You can help that kid. Your program doesn't have to helping doesn't have to be, oh, I have to go out and help the worst of the worst. No, go out and help people that you understand don't have as many opportunities as others.
Now, Mr. B, something we shared yesterday. And I always said for us to be doing the work that we do now, it was great that we had a lot of those professional experiences prior. But like we said, when somebody sees something and it's like, man, I want to go out there and do. Um, is it good to have professional experience, or would it be good to maybe tie yourself into a group that is already doing things so you can get in and learn it before you step out, into a business venture? Um,
For again, with social media, with the ability to be able to speak sometimes, right? Some of us are, especially our folks, right? We are good orator, like uh, I'm trying to use a word that I wasn't ready to use, but we're
Orators, is that what?
in that family. But we're great speakers, right? We can speak, we can get the party going. And sometimes when you have that ability, people start to believe in everything else around that, right? Like he speaks very well. He gets people inspired. But do you understand what you're doing? Do you really understand the work that you're doing outside of, oh, because it's deeper than just trying to help. You have to understand how you're trying to help. Okay, this is the problem I want to address. This is how we're going to address it. It's cool that a lot of us try to I want to be a lot of us try to just use what we know, homeboy our way through some of these things. But when we're talking about true change, true program, true organizations, and how we help people rise and level up, there's a science to this, and a lot of it is bigger than just your heart and that you want to do. It's understanding how to get the resources that we need to take on the issue, right? So it's cool if you are the MC guy that gets everyone hyped, but surround yourself with a group of people that you're able to back up the hypeness with a foolproof plan, a full and if and let me say this also, in the beginning when we started Fathers Read 365, we didn't understand exactly what we were doing, but we were trying. We had worked 20 years in a field that we had pulled experience from, like we can help. We have ran things for people. We've been directors, managers of things, and we were able to take all of that experience and bring it into this work. This work isn't just, oh, he's been locked up before, he can do this work. Oh, she's from the hood, she can do this work. No, this work is deeper than that. This work takes a level of skill, understanding, heart, and determination. It's bigger than just being able to talk about it and say, hey, let's do this, let's do that, right? There's a lot of legal things you have to abide by when doing this work because you're working dealing with sensitive information. So, and you don't know us from the internet. You don't know us from social media. We're trying to build that up. But the people that we're trying to impact in the world that we work in, They know us. They know Fathers Read 365. They know Mr. A, Mr. B. And we are popular in those realms, right? We might get popular, who knows, here or not. But we
Right. Right. And
so to answer your question, yes, get around people. Don't think you can do this all by yourself.
right. And as you're sharing that and just looking at our trajectory, um, I'm gonna let you go. Because my thought, I'm sitting up here listening to you, Mr. B. Uh you, it No, the next thing I wanted to pose was around, this issue of gun violence. It was around it's around us as fathers, and one of our other big pushes, because when we got together the second time around, when we started, building our programs and talking, one of the things we connected on was our children and the safety of our children, our families, and that this work is an extension of that. And and again, as Mr. B said, as we got into this work, what we did, we started to learn more and more. First, we were champions for, just dads being involved, getting engaged, blah blah blah. But like I had mentioned before, was working with those dads in prison, and working with the dads in prison, and when they came home. But as we got into the work more and more, what we learned is, how could we keep the kids from going to prison? And that's where, Fathers Read, and what I'm getting to, Mr. B, is what you asked me way back in this conversation. And now we want to get into the meat and potatoes of what it looks like, because sometimes we could say, hey, we want to go out and do this and take action, but sometimes we gotta take pull the reins back. We had 5 programs coming out, we had to pull the reins back. Let's work with one. Me and Mr. B have so many grandiose ideas that we know can be impactful in the communities, but it's going to take time to get to that. So it's going to take patience. As much as we want to jump out and wanted to create, our experience with that was what, Mr. B, that we had to, scale it back and be more intentional. And because of that,
Big. Stumble and fall when you have a lot less to stumble and fall with is a better way of stumbling and falling, right? Learn how to level up. We hear it's a what they call it in business. Um it's a term they always use. People use it so much. Scaling. Scaling. That's real. Learning how to scale something with all the business people we've worked with building this organization, consultants. One thing I learned through that is scaling is real and how to scale. There's no school of scaling. There's no one teaching you scaling. You have to get around people who understand how to scale and what it looks like. And it doesn't look like this to that. It looks like that to this. You know what I'm saying? And understanding that and not being in a rush, right? We at 9 years in. It's like, wow, we've been doing this for 9 years. We've just starting to really catch our stride, right? And we've done some amazing things, some amazing work over those 9 years that we're both proud of. Made some amazing connections, partnerships. However, in year 9, I would say we start to just really get this plane up off the ground for what we're trying to really do, and that's okay. Don't try to rush this thing. Understand that they're not people just rushing to throw you dollars to do this type of work. You're going to have to understand what you're doing, show the passion for it, then scale that into, okay, how can I get donations? How can I get some type of, how do I learn funding? How do I learn who funds what? How that happens? And there's no classes for that, right? Well, there may be, but we didn't take them. That's something you're going to have to learn. That's paying your dues. That's walking your dogs. That's what you're make any business successful is make yourself knowledgeable in it. It's not just we got to stop the killing. We got to stop what's going on in Philly. It's how do we do that strategically? How do we do that? We as people from the community, how can we do that? Because we can, but strategically, it can't just be led by emotion. It has to be led by education.
And just a vocab word for you, it's putting together a system, because that's what it's going to. We said yesterday, hey, we could go out and talk, but you're going to open up such a big can of worms. And then once them worms is out and scurrying, it's like, okay, how can I control this area? Or else once the worms is out, it's like, okay, what did I just start? Where are we going? And then it loses its substance and it's considered sustainable.
And before I jump off, that was a good conversation we had yesterday about how do we help. We wanted to help the babies, but how do we help their families? And do we take on all of this at once, or are we conduits? Do we find tunnels and ways to help the others focus on our focus, and then create a system that helps everyone instead of us trying to take on? Let people be good at what they're good at. Uh, we everyone usually has a few things that they're good at, right? You're not good at usually everything. Allow people to understand how to partner. And we became safe in our partnership when we became safe in who we were as an organization, right? Once we established that, it's cool to partner because we know what we do. This is what we want for what we're doing. This is what we're going to do for what we're doing. And then if that matches, cool. If not, cool as well. So people just don't sit in the emotions of being anger. Allow that because that's going to end at some point, right? Those emotions are going to end at some point.
And then what?
And then what? We need the Jeezy. We gotta get our. We want to get it up. We want to get our soundboard up. We need the Jeezy drop. And then what? But yeah, allow that energy, passion, emotion to lead you into like, hey, I'm gonna start this for a group of girls. Hey, I'm gonna start this for a group of moms. I'm gonna start this for a group of dads. I'm gonna start this for some young men. There's so many. Such a wide web. You can find your little section in it and say, I'm gonna help this part. This how I'm gonna help it, and just moving forward. You don't have to help the whole web, right?
And real quick, I know you gotta go, Mr. B, but I just want to put this out there. And if you're open to it, Mr. B, if there is anybody out there who has started something already and it's working, or you started something and you have questions around it, or you're just looking to get started, please leave some comments down below. And it just doesn't have to be us on here, and we would love to speak with you.
Yeah, we definitely. You probably this is a live. We going to definitely. This is our first time doing this on the future. We'll do it in a better, more system. We talking about all these systems. We'll do it, but we had to get on here. We had to get started. We'll present it. How we present it as we move forward. Scale it right. However, please share it in the chat. We want to get the chat going. We want people to speak around how as one of these guests, you could jump in one of these boxes, right? We could get on here with you, maybe talk through that. But overall, yeah, please get in the comments. Tell us, what type of work you're doing, where you're doing it, small, big, or just a thought right now. You know what I'm saying? Let's inspire each other to create more programming in our community. There's no reason why we shouldn't be controlling the programming in our community. Programming is real. If you don't program, somebody else will. And I gave y'all bars.
All day. Well, hey, get your daughter to school.
Yep. I, yep. I'm gonna give you a call. And yo, we signing off, y'all. Enjoy this one. Share it, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Hit the bell so you be notified when we drop these joints. Help us spread this community. We got to get up to at least 1,000. We ain't even at 1,000 subscribers yet. Help us get there. And with that, we out. They chat.